Welcome to Kiffin's Keep, an intellectual resource for the pillar and buttress of the truth, which is the church. This is a project of the London Lyceum, which is all about serious thinking for a serious church. I'm Jordan Stefaniak, host of Kiffin's Keep and president of the London Lyceum. And as always, I'm excited to be here with you all today. Today's episode, I'm going to be covering advice to Christian philosophers in particular. So get ready for that. Buckle up. This is not a sort of show where I dilly-dally and hang around. It is a show where we get down to business as quickly as possible. Before I forget, though, remember to like the episode if you enjoyed it, or like the video, I guess, or whatever. If you're listening, you can go YouTube and click like, because you can't do it on a podcast. Whatever, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything, hit that little bell, and then comment if you've got ideas, thoughts, questions, or additional feedback. The comments are always fun. Sometimes you guys are crazy. Sometimes it's awesome. So I wanted to riff off an amazing new book that's coming out called Advice to Christian Philosophers, Reflections on the Past and Future of Christian Philosophy. This is going to be an excellent book that you'll want to get a copy of. You can pre-order it right now at hanoverpress.com. If you go there, there's a link to pre-order a copy of it for a discounted rate, and then it should be available at all retailers in December. But I'm going to give you a hunch, if you're watching this before December 2nd, when it releases, if you pre-order, you're going to get a copy sooner than December 2nd. So you'll have it in your hands before that, before Christmas. So it's a nice Christmas edition for if you have a student who's interested in philosophy, or even if you're a theologian of some sort and you want to know and understand Christian philosophy. This is a nice entryway into thinking about how do they think about their discipline? How do they think about going about doing a so-called secular discipline? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. If it is, how do you do that as a Christian, etc. So I wanted to give some of my own advice from my own experience. Now, I'm not a senior philosopher like a lot of these people in here. I mean, you've got everybody from Linda Zagzebski, who recently retired from the University of Oklahoma, Peter Van Wagen, to Paul Gould, to Ed Facer, to Tim Paul. Pretty much everybody has significantly been in the field for a long time, whereas I haven't. But I still thought, you know what, this is the world of YouTube. I'm going to offer some of my own advice. And I've been able to obviously read everybody's essays, chapters in this book, have a good sense for what's said and what's not said. And so I just wanted to give my own advice. Some of this is going to be more practical, and some of it's going to be more, I guess, theoretical. So, but as a reminder, before I get started, do pre-order the book. If you're even mildly interested in it, supporting the work of Hanover Press, pre-ordering books like that goes a long way. So Hanover Press is an introductory member of the Association of University Presses. If you didn't know, we're listed right next to Harvard. So it shows our commitment to peer review standards and high quality, all those sort of things, which is really exciting to have a publisher like us be able to be a part of a group like that. But we are small and underfunded, and so your pre-orders make a big difference. Now, my advice, number one, would be to be excellent at philosophy. If you want to be a Christian philosopher, you better be excellent at philosophy. If you want to be a Christian anything, you should be excellent at what you do. So be really good at it. Don't hem-haw around. Don't go get a half-baked education. Don't miss the readings, and don't do your homework. Even if you're teaching in a Christian context, even if you're not a professional philosopher, you use that degree for other purposes. It's important to be the best at what you do. And part of that's just theologically motivated to do your best. But also, it's important just as a Christian to represent Christians well. So be excellent at philosophy, know your stuff, read the books, do your homework. Number two, as a Christian philosopher, as a Christian, you should know your Bible, you should know your history, and you should know your doctrine. This is a perennial pushback on philosophers, as they don't know the Bible, they don't know history, and they don't know doctrine. So prioritize these things. Take an additional course in it, even after you have a PhD. Do continually read theological books, and make sure to read your Bible, and do these other things to continue to grow in those different areas. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a full-on biblical exegete, but you should be reading your Bible. You should know the Bible. Now, there's different ways to go about making sure that you're really good in those different areas, but I would commend you to just make sure to prioritize those sorts of things. Along with that, number three, my other piece of advice would be to go to church and to pray. You'd be surprised and somewhat shocked, and this probably goes for theologians too, how many don't regularly attend church, how many don't know people at their church, how many people don't pray. I mean, these are basic Christian exercises, and they are, in my mind, a requirement to have a full orbed sense of the truth and understanding of the truth. There's something that the church does, and there's something that prayer does that shapes you into a particular person to be able to see and understand things more appropriately. Number 4 would be, as a reminder, a lot of Christians who go into philosophy go into it for apologetics. And this is just a reminder that apologetics isn't the end all be all. It's not the only thing philosophy does, nor should it be. I don't even know if it should be a big part of what philosophy does. Apologetics matters and is relevant. It's important. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're a philosopher, be a philosopher. Know your philosophy. Don't know just arguments for the existence of God or rebuttals to the problem of evil. There's more to it in the world of philosophy than that. My 5th piece of advice would be to focus on something big and something new. So I guess, I mean, obviously as a philosopher, you're going to specialize in various things. So I would specialize in something really big, but also something new and relevant and important for the life of the church. There is real value in studying the perennial issues in philosophy. People need to do that. We need people who are disconnected from reality in a sense, to where they focus on the most important things that have been focused on for thousands of years for good reason, and don't get sidetracked by all the constant little blips on the radar of time of the cool thing to discuss or the hot thing to discuss. But we also do need people discussing and thinking well and clearly about the most important things in life at that period in time. So I do think there's value in focusing on something new in an appropriate sense. So you can focus on something bigger like metaphysics or the philosophy of mind, and then drill down some aspects that impact our daily life, and then share what you're learning with your community, with your church, with those around you. 6th piece of advice would be to make friends. It is incredibly important to have friendships, because friendships will be those sort of people who are able to push back on you and your thoughts and your ideas and say, that's wrong, or that doesn't make sense. And that's when you become a better philosopher. You're not a good philosopher if you just have good ideas. You have to actually test them, interact with other people, find out where your gaps are in your knowledge, where your arguments don't make sense, or where your arguments go off the rails. That's the real value. Like, that's what drew me to philosophy in part, was just the community of learners who are willing to say, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. It wasn't just like nod along, describe a Latin, use a couple Latin words and think that's cool. The description, and I often hear of people who like Judith Butler as sort of, she drops out like $10 words. None of it makes sense, but because she's cool, the followers just follow along, nod their heads, and think that the problem is you. That's an example of like, I don't like that. I don't want that. That's bad. You should be able to be clear, articulate, and explain what you mean, and people understand it. But then people will be able to, the danger, of course, when people understand you, they can see the gaps in your reasoning. But that's what friends do. Friends are able to push back and say, no, dude, that's crazy. I love you, but you're wrong. A 7th piece of advice would be to write a lot and to publish as much as you can. So write all sorts of different types of things. Write blog styled things, 1,000, 2,000 word things. Write journal articles. Try to write everything in between. Write as much as you can, because writing is a skill that it increases and gets better with practice. And my advice to publish is to publish in as many journals, academic, high standard journals, as you can. And the reason for that is not because you want to have a long CV or you want to be really cool. It's because the blind peer review helps you, pushes you to tell you where you need to spend more time thinking. And it also just pushes you to be able to communicate at a higher level. It teaches you how to have a rhythm, to deal with rejection, to deal with deadlines. And ultimately, yeah, you're going to publish some things you ultimately disagree with in 5 years and 10 years, or maybe even shorter. Maybe it's a year or less. And that's good. It's good to learn and grow and to put your ideas out there, and people say, you know what, that's totally wrong. And then you realize, you know what, they're right. I was totally wrong. You have never had that experience of learning and knowing that you were wrong had you not put out your ideas in public and published them. And so there's some people worry it's like, don't publish until you're like, later in career, because, you might be wrong. You're still developing ideas. Yes and no. Like there is value in saying, like, I'm going to be silent and quiet and patient and learn for a long period of time before I start publishing on these things. And I think that's more relevant for books than it is for journal articles. But I think you should be publishing because it's going to stretch you, challenge you, and it's totally fine to disagree with yourself later on in life. Now, those are my very quick, obviously, advice for Christian philosophers. So part of this is really wrapped up in be a Christian, do Christian things, go to church, make friendships, serve people, pray, love, read your Bible, just know your Bible really, really well, and to know history really, really well, as well as you can, to know doctrine as well as you can. That's going to make you a better philosopher, even if it's not directly applicable if you're dealing with something very just specifically philosophically oriented. Everything has overlap with the Christian life. And so I think it's very important to be a good Christian first before you're a good philosopher, but you want to be an excellent philosopher too. So you don't want to be bad in that. I mean, just do your homework, constantly be learning, constantly put yourself in experiences and opportunities to grow and to be challenged. Don't just live in your own little bubble of Christianity or whoever it is. Get out there, learn, grow, make enemies in the right sense. And I think that'll help you in the long term. So if you get a copy of this book, you're going to get 23 essays. I think it is 23 chapters working through things, and it's fabulous. So you got a wide range of thoughts and thinkers in this across the theological spectrum, people I agree with, people I disagree with, people who write things I agree with, people who write things I disagree with, but it's all very stimulating to think through what, there's all the time, at least for me, there are people I'm like, wow, you're really far down the road. I'd love to spend some time learning from you and say, like, what advice would you have for me? I'm a young man, or, at early in my stage of my career, what would you have done differently? What would you tell me to do? And those would be valuable conversations. Now you have them in a book that you can go get and read, and you can get that advice right there to you. So Tom McCall's endorsed it, Hud Hudson endorsed it, Tim O'Connor endorsed it. So that tells you it's a valuable book. So I really, really encourage you to go pre-order it today. If you value our work and you value this sort of work, go do that for us. I'll drop a link in the show notes to it so you can click it, go directly there and do that. Anyway, hopefully this is useful. If you have other advice, drop it in the comments. Love to hear it. If you have pushback to any of my advice or things you thought, well, I thought you would have said this, then drop it there. Anyway, appreciate you all for tuning in. Thanks for listening to Kiffin's Keep, and I look forward to being with you all.